Cool. All right, I've got my squashes in there. Now I just need to get my contrast going and favor the keys in the stretches here. So if you'll notice, we get that nice boing there. But of course, as the bounces get lower and the stretches remain the same, it looks rather silly. So we're going to address that in a moment. But let's just tidy up our loose ends and just do a little more copying and pasting here to get the copying of this sense of the recovery of the full shape of the ball. So we're going to middle mouse drag from here to about here. Um, and so now you can really get a sense of how quickly you can really do a lot of things just by copying and pasting and using the power of the program itself to do all these sort of mundane little things that are just part of the whole kind of thing. So the little details are kind of a drag, and computers will drive you nuts. So I say if there are parts of computer animation itself, parts of the software that you can use that will make your life easier, then by all means use them. So now I'm just going to do the same thing here. I'm going to take these and copy and paste them here. Like most things in Maya, this is just a way of sort of setting up a template, but it's not necessarily always going to be perfect. As a matter of fact, it's pretty rarely going to be perfect. So so don't worry about worry about it if it's not, because we're going to go through and do the tweaking at the end to make sure everything's nice and pretty. Okay, so I'm just going to do a little bit more of this so we can. Okay, so that's good for now, and we just want to double check and make sure our translate and our rotate, those have not been affected, so they're still looking pretty good. Okay, so now let's take this scale and lessen the severity of the squash and stretch as the ball bounces lower and lower, right? So that bounce is good for something that high, but then for something that high, I think not. So what we can do is we can just take this whole thing, this whole little chunk really. We want to hit R for scale, put the square right kind of in the middle of it, and that's just going to lessen the whole thing. So now our bounce is going to be, it's going to be a little less severe because the bounce is lower. So now we just want to do kind of the same idea, only even more. All right. And then by the time it gets to the very end, it's because it's bouncing so low, it's barely going to squash and stretch at all because there's really not enough impact to to really make it worthwhile. Now, so you'll notice when I pulled this down here, I pulled it down like that, and it ended up sort of off center. That's because I hadn't placed my cursor right in the middle. You want to sort of get it to where it's sitting right at 0, and you're gonna bring it down about something like that. Now in this case, this one here, I'm a little off kilter on both of these, so I can always grab them, hit W for translate, and just pull them down to where they're sort of sitting right in the middle. So that one's going to sit right in the middle there. This one's going to sit right in the middle here. And and this is going to want to go back, I believe, to 1, because that is the, let me just double check, that is the height of, that's frame 90. Yeah, that's the height of it. So we want that to be sitting at 1 because there's going to be no squash and stretch at all. Okay, so let's just take a look at that and see where it's gotten us. Boing, boing, boing. Okay, so that's, you get the idea. That one right there, I think I may have overdone it a bit. We still want to get a little something, but that's no problem. Just grab it, hit R for scale, put that thing right in the middle, and just up it a bit. So now you can, and as you're upping it in the graph editor, you can see how that's affecting what it looks like. Okay. So let's see how that looks. Okay, so that looks pretty good. It looks a little more believable. Boing, boing. Yeah. So anyway, you get the idea. And at this point, you can just sort of trim it and mess with the curves to your liking. In the case, one thing I can see happening here is that thing's already recovering pretty quickly there. So I may want to just, it may feel like it's just, recovering a little too quickly, so I may just want, and the curves are also looking funny. So if I just change them to If I change them to spline, they overcompensate a little too much, so I may just have to, oops, mess with them sort of manually. So I hit W for scale, or I'm sorry, W for translate, and now I can really make them just exactly how I want them to be. So again, I can grab the key and move the key, and then grab the handle and move the handle. And so same thing. You know, generally speaking, when a line comes down, flattens out, and then continues to go out, that's going to look a little funny. So we want to try to get these kind of nice French curve kind of lines happening. And then that'll make the whole thing prettier, I think. It's pretty sort of what we're after. This one could come down a little bit. So anyway, I think you get the idea. So let's just take a look at how just changing how nice these handles have affected the slow ins and the slow outs. Let's just see what kind of a change that makes in our overall animation. Okay. Cool. All right. So now it's starting to look, you know, pretty good. Really, in my opinion, I think this one is just that one's just way overdone. So the only other thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna chill out on this whole thing right here. R for scale, down in the middle, something maybe like that. I think that's cool. All right. There we go. Now the one last thing that we need to do is just finish up with our rotate in X. So you notice we did it here, and then we sort of gave up on it. So let's just do our last little bit here. We can copy and paste it if we want. Really, it's such a simple thing. I'm just going to want to just do it like this. So go back here, bring it back right before the impact, move it ahead right after the impact. Again, same thing. Back a little bit, and again, like the squash and stretch, as the distances get less and the impact gets less, then again the amount of rotate X we're going to want to put in is going to be less and less as well. Oops, I put that on the wrong one. There we go, like that. So, and then we can take a look at it in the graph editor and see how we've done. Like that's pretty close. We want to take all these middle keys. Now we can either make these middle keys splined so they look kind of nice for how they go, or if we want, we can just blow them away and we're still going to get kind of the same look. So blowing away keys is an art unto itself, and we will definitely get into that a little bit more later on. So and then if I want, I can just mess with these lines to just sort of make them look nice in the graph editor. Now, the audience, of course, is never going to see your lines. And generally speaking, animators don't really care about looking at other animators' lines. All that matters is what's on the screen. But if your lines are pretty, then the chances that your animation is going to be pretty as well is greatly increased. So you just want to, as you go through this process, you just want to make sure that all these things you do, that there's a certain symmetry and a certain beauty to the lines themselves, because that will definitely translate into the animation. So let's take a look at this last thing. So you can sort of see how it's sort of moving like that. Let's just, there. Cool. And there you have it. You have a ball that's sort of moving through space, up and down, and then gradually coming to a rest. And then depending on your level of patience and desire to make things absolutely beautiful, you can tweak from there to your heart's content. And as you get further along in the course of your animation, tweaking is going to become something that's more and more important as animation gets more and more complicated. So get used to that idea. Okay, one quick note about playing back. You'll notice on the playback that you're not seeing every frame. That may be a function of the DVD that you're watching. That may also be a function of playback speed. Right now, it's set to playback every frame. But what that means, ironically enough, is that when you're looking at a scene that has very light geometry in it, like a very simple bouncing ball, when you play back, it goes really fast. And so when it gets going that fast, you may not see every frame. So if you feel like you're missing an important frame, that it's not in there, that you animated and you're not seeing it in playback, don't worry. You can always scroll through it more slowly to make sure that everything is in there. Or if you want, you can do a play blast to see it in its proper time. And that will always show every frame of what you animated. So don't worry if you're not seeing everything on the playback itself. There are better ways to do it. All right. And then what we're going to do next in this is we're going to now take these concepts and apply them to how a human being will move through space. It's going to be a lot of fun.